This is a continuation of the discussion of absolute references that we started in the video just prior to this one. If you'd like to work along at home, open the Project Files folder, Lesson 3 folder, and then open Absolute Reference. And we're currently on the Bonuses worksheet. We're already familiar with the concept of using a cell's name in a formula. For example, a formula here might say equals G7 times J7. In the previous lesson, we learned how to use dollar signs around the J7 so that we could use this same formula in all of these yellow cells, and then each of these yellow cells would then point back to this one same cell. Now we're going to do the same thing in this video, but instead of using dollar signs, we're going to name the cell that contains the bonus rate, and then use that name in a formula. Now when I say name it, I mean, yep, we're going to give it a good old English name. So I'm going to hit Escape to abandon the edit. And then I'm going to click right on the 15%. And here's the procedure. You select the cell or range of cells that you want to name, and then you click in the name box. That's this box right here in the top left-hand corner. Click right in there. It'll highlight the current cell name, and then you just type over top of that. In this case, I'm going to type in bonus rate. Now notice that I've put an underscore between bonus and rate, and that's because you can't have spaces in cell names. Now there's a couple other limitations in names you should know too. You can't use hyphens. It doesn't like special characters like exclamation points, periods, or question marks. You can have numbers in the cell name like bonus rate 123, but you can't start the name with a number like 123 bonus rate. The other thing you have to remember is that after you've typed in the name, you must hit enter on the keyboard. People forget this all the time, and if you don't do this, the name doesn't stick. So here we go, enter. All right, so now we're going to test it. We're going to click away from here and then go over to the name box, and you see the little drop down arrow here? When you click the arrow, it'll show you the names of any cells or cell ranges that you've named inside your worksheet. And if you want to quickly navigate to that cell, you can just click on its name, bonus rate in this case, and it takes you right back to cell J7. Pretty cool. But where it really gets interesting now is we can use that name in a formula. Specifically, the formula that we're going to create in this top yellow cell. Because we've named cell J7, the name we've given it will only ever apply to that one cell. Even though there's over 16 billion cells in a worksheet, that's the only one that has that name. And that's an absolute reference in itself, don't you know? So let's see if we can't just use the name in the formula. Equals the 1250 times, and then we're just going to click on the 15%. You'll see that it puts bonus rate into the formula. Now, could we have typed bonus rate in there instead of clicking on the 15%? Well, sure we could have, but who wants to type when you can just click? So here we go, Control Enter. That finishes our business in the cell and leaves our active cell where it is without moving it down. And now we'll just use the fill handle, double click the fill handle to copy it down, and it works beautifully without ever having to use dollar signs. So if you click on the top cell and look in the formula bar, you can see it says G7 times bonus rate. Just watch the formula bar as we go from cell to cell. Here's the second formula, G8 times bonus rate. So every one of these refers to bonus rate. Now the beauty of this is, just like dollar signs, if we get generous and want to give them a 20% bonus, just change it in one place. Type in a 20, hit enter, and there you go. I love naming cells. It makes life so much easier. You don't have to think too much about dollar signs whenever you do this. Now let's take this whole naming thing over to the next worksheet. We'll go to the P&L worksheet. Let me explain what's going on in the worksheet, and then we'll talk about how to get this naming thing to work for us here. Here we have a list of the revenue that we've generated in our business. Revenue, as I'm sure you know, is our income, and we make income 4 different ways: by selling rafting supplies, giving river tours, having camping fees, and doing boat rentals. So all 4 of these parts of our business, these 4 guys here, sum up to this number right here. In fact, there's a sum function right here. I'm going to hit F2 so you can see it. That simply adds up these 4 numbers right here and puts the result in that gray cell. So that is the sum total of our revenue. Now, on a profit and loss statement, after you figure out your revenue, then you have to start subtracting all of your business costs. And of course, the end result of this is that you should have a picture of how much money you lost or made whenever you're finished subtracting your expenses from your revenue. So now we have a list of all the expenses down here, and the expenses are broken down as well. For example, here we have the cost of sales, and it has two different things. We have rafting supplies and guide apparel that contribute to the cost of sales. And then we have sales and marketing. Here's the total figure for that one. Here we have operating expenses and so forth. When you get down to the bottom, the formula here simply takes our revenue and subtracts all of these gray cells here. The total cost of sales, the total marketing expenses, the total operating expenses, and the total taxes. Subtracts all those from the total revenue. Now, we've got the numbers. We see whether we've made money or not. In fact, we've lost $32,142. What we want to know is what percentage of our sales do each one of these things contribute? For example, what percentage of our sales, this figure right here, did this figure contribute? Well, the math is just basic high school math. In fact, they're probably even doing it in grade school now. To get the percentage, you take this little number and divide it by this big number. So the formula would just simply be equals, and then you take this, divided by this. Hit enter, and it tells us 85.2%. Now, I've formatted these cells in column D ahead of time to display percentages. That's why you're getting that instead of a number with lots of decimal points. Now, let's get down and do the next formula. Equals this number divided by, again, that same gray cell. And then we'll go do the next one. Equals this one divided by that same gray cell. Equals this one divided by that same gray cell. Now, what do all these formulas have in common? They all use the same gray cell. So wouldn't it be easier to put the formula in one time, lock in the cell reference with a name or dollar signs, and then be able to copy that formula to all the other cells? Well, I think it would be easier, so let's try it out. I'm just going to hit escape, and we'll delete these guys right here. And we'll start out by naming this cell right here. We're going to name our revenue cell. So we'll go up to the name box, and I'm just going to type in sales. Remember to hit enter or it doesn't stick. All right, now I want to test this. You always want to test your cell names before you try to use them anywhere. The way we do that is just click away from the cell and then click the drop-down arrow in the name box and choose sales. And if it takes you where you think you should be going, you're good free. Another way to test it is just click on the cell and look in the name box and see if it says what it's supposed to say there. Instead of saying C19, it says sales. Perfect. Okay, so now we're ready to use this in a formula. We go to the top green cell. It's equals the little number divided by sales. And you just click on the sales cell and Excel puts the name in. And I'll hit Control-Enter. And now I'm ready to use the fill handle to copy this down. So I'm just going to grab the fill handle, drag it right down to here. Now this is going to overwrite my gray cell. Clink, just like that. See, it's now green. So I'm going to use the autofill options button right here to say that I don't want to fill the formatting. In fact, we're just going to say fill without formatting, and that's going to copy the formula without messing up my gray format. How about that? Okay, now we have lots of places here where we need to use that same formula. Because in order to figure out the percentage of the sales here, we need to also take this number and divide it by this number. Once again, we're coming back to sales. And then we need to take this number and divide it by this number. And then this number divided by this number. In fact, the whole way down through column C, we're going to be taking whatever numbers are there and dividing them by, you guessed it, the sales figure. Now, rather than having to put this in multiple times and use the fill handle and the autofill options button like we just did right here, let's do this a faster way. I'm going to delete all these formulas right here and just leave this top one right where it is. Then I'm going to copy that. Control-C will copy that formula. And then I'll select these cells, including the gray one. Now hold down the Control key on the keyboard and select the next group of cells. What we're doing is targeting the cells where we want to paste the formula. We'll come down and Control, select these guys. Control key still held down. I'm selecting all these cells. Now I'm going to use the wheel on the mouse to scroll down a little bit. Control held down. I'm grabbing these guys. Control still held down. I'm going to click on this last gray cell. So all of these cells are now selected. Now, how do I get the formula in there without messing up my gray formatting? Well, here's how we're going to do it. We're going to go back to the Home tab and click the little drop-down arrow under the Paste button. Now, here's a really cool feature. Whenever you click this down arrow and you get all these options, you get something called Live Preview, which will show you what it looks like out in the cells before you even make your choice. So let's just hover over Paste and take a look in column D. You can see what that's going to do. It would actually put the formulas in okay, but it is going to overwrite the gray. Now, I haven't clicked anything. I'm just hovering over that. Let's go one to the right and choose Formulas. And look at that. Live Preview says, yeah, that's what you want to do. That's going to put the formulas in without overwriting the formatting. So I'm just going to click right on that, Formulas. And how about that? We've just taken care of a big worksheet with lots of formulas with just a couple of mouse clicks.